Hey everyone, I'm Leanne Young. We're here in the CBC newsroom in Vancouver. I've got your top stories from around our region. Let's start by taking a look at the weather. And that's a look at the misty conditions over False Creek here in Vancouver. An intense atmospheric river is bringing heavy rain through to tonight. Rain covering the region at this point. This is downtown Vancouver. Environment Canada has issued an orange rainfall alert that's in effect for the Chilliwack and Hope areas. Up to 100 millimeters of rain is expected to fall by midnight. The BC River Forecast Centre is warning of localized flooding and possibly even landslides. This weather has also increased avalanche risk.
Pretty much comes down to the stormier it is, the more dangerous. So the big drivers are heavy snowfall, wind, and rain that drive that avalanche activity. In areas where we've seen more rain than snow, it's actually been eroding the snowpack and hazards quite a bit lower. But during bouts of snow, or if there's some uncertainty about alpine snow, then the hazard will be elevated at those higher elevations.
And speaking of that threat, Highway 97 is closed between Prince George and Chetwynd due to avalanche risk. BC's Ministry of Transportation says small avalanches are expected to affect the road between West Pine Rest area and Azu Campground. Avalanche Canada says the risk for the region northeast of Prince George is high, with large amounts of new snow burying weak layers underneath, making slides likely. And the federal government has introduced new legislation to better protect survivors of sexual crimes and intimate partner violence. Advocates say the government's use of the term femicide is an important step forward.
I think in general, this is a good opportunity to highlight this particular version of killing and to make that distinct in some way, and that it will hopefully help shift the culture but bring more accountability.
McDougall adds violence against women is on the rise across the country. The BC government is also welcoming the federal legislation, saying it is foundational to the province's efforts to fight these types of crimes. And just this morning, the Bank of Canada announced it is keeping its key interest rate at 2.25%. That's its final rate update of the year. Governor Tiff Macklem says despite the Trump administration's trade war, the Canadian economy has shown resiliency. The central bank says the current rate is about the right level to keep inflation close to its 2% target. And Vancouver's FIFA delegation has returned from Washington, D.C. with a clear picture of what next summer's tournament will look like. With the draw and schedule now set, the city's tourism bureau is preparing for the influx of soccer fans who will be coming to cheer their country on. The CEO of Destination Vancouver says he likes how it turned out for Vancouver, with Australia, New Zealand, Belgium, Switzerland, Qatar, and Egypt all set to play at BC Place.
We like the countries that we're seeing, especially, New Zealand and Australia. Australia has been a core market for us for many years, as an example. Add in Switzerland, and we've got some other teams that are showing up as well that are not typical core markets for us. But Vancouver is a global city, and it's a global city built to host global events.
And the final country coming to Vancouver will be the winner of an upcoming playoff between Kosovo, Romania, Slovakia, and Turkey. Good luck to all those teams, but Team Canada for us, right? Okay, that's it for me for now. You're watching CBC News BC. I'm Leanne Young. Coming up after this, BC Today with Amy Bell sitting in for Michelle Elliott, and she'll be asking for your thoughts on some traffic conditions. All right, stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. More news.
Good afternoon. Thanks so much for joining us today. A Vancouver City Councillor is trying to make crossing the road safer by putting more limits on when drivers can turn right on a red light. But are there other ways we can keep everyone safe on the streets? And the holiday season is usually a time of joy, but for some young people, it can also be a time of sadness or stress. So what support is available to them? We'll check in with Kids Help Phone on ways that they can get help. I'm Amy Bell in for Michelle Elliott, and this is BC Today. And thanks for joining us here on radio, TV, and live stream. You can call us now on our top story. Do you think right turns should be banned at red lights? Our number is 604-669-3733. You can also call 1-800-825-5950 or pound 690 on your cell if it's safe to do so. You can also email us, bctoday@cbc.ca. First, though, I want to start with the latest on the atmospheric river that's hitting BC's south coast. Heavy rainfall is coming down especially hard on central and eastern Fraser Valley, and that are under Environment Canada's orange alert. That includes Hope, Chilliwack, and interior highway sections, which could see anywhere from 80 to 110 millimeters of rain. The storm is expected to last until this evening. The BC River Forecast Centre has issued a flood watch for Lower Fraser River tributaries through the Fraser Valley and into the southern interior. This includes Chilliwack, Hope, the Sumas River, Skagit River, and Coquihalla River. Here was Environment Canada meteorologist Ken Desange on the early edition this morning.
When you look at the satellite image, you see a very, very clear atmospheric river coming from the Pacific straight towards us. How long is that expected to last?
Absolutely. It's expected to continue until this evening. But looking at satellite itself, that you bring it up, the main driving factor for this is pretend you're like a satellite up in space. We have these two high pressure systems, one over the Yukon and one off the coast of California. And think of them almost as like the bread of a sandwich. And so in between there, we've essentially created a storm highway. So if you look on satellite, you'll see this atmospheric river originating from the subtropics, bringing that warm, moist air and creating this highway right towards our region, the South Coast. But I will make special mention that it is Washington State that is seeing the brunt of this action, more specifically like the Olympic Mountains and the Cascades. And we're seeing mostly the northern extent of it, but still definitely enough to warrant yellow and orange rainfall warnings at this time.
And this atmospheric river, of course, brings memories of the floods back in November of 2021. That was when the province hit 20 rainfall records. In the District of Hope, more than 277 millimeters of rain fell over a 2-day period. Hope Mayor Victor Smith told the early edition about what it's like in his community today.
Actually, taking a look around the town, like the Coquihalla and the Silver Hope Road are up, which, they're not record levels, but the problem is always is the sheer volume.
Yeah.
But the speed of which the water comes down has always been the issue. The Fraser's got lots of capacity for us here. So it's our local rivers that we always are concerned about.
Right.
Yep.
Sorry, go ahead.
And also by the hospital there in Old Hope Princeton Way, we put a channel in last time with the work of the provincial government to relieve the pressure on that corner. And you can see it's working quite well this morning on that. So we definitely learned from 2021.
And the stormy weather also brings some avalanche risks. Other regions like the Peace River District, Fort Nelson, and the North Coast saw a snowfall warning from Environment Canada over the weekend. Colin Garrity is forecaster and field technician with Avalanche Canada.
Pretty much comes down to the stormier it is, the more dangerous. So the big drivers are heavy snowfall, wind, and rain that drive that avalanche activity. In areas where we've seen more rain than snow, it's actually been eroding the snowpack and hazards quite a bit lower. But during bouts of snow, or if there's some uncertainty about alpine snow, then the hazard will be elevated at those higher elevations.
In central BC, Highway 97 is closed between Prince George and Chetwynd due to avalanche risk. The Ministry of Transportation says small avalanches are expected to affect the road between the West Pine Rest area and Azu Campground. Avalanche Canada says the risk for the region northeast of Prince George is high, with large amounts of new snow burying weak layers underneath, making slides likely. It is 12:11, and this is BC Today. And of course, it is the holiday season, which is usually a time of togetherness. But our friends at Daybreak North in Prince George decided to stir the pot and set some stage for some good old friendly holiday squabbles. They're hosting the 12 debates of Christmas on their show, taking on some classics like real tree versus fake tree or white lights or colored lights. Well, our story producers Caleb Dysart and Stephanie Hungerford gave some Vancouverites a chance to chime in. Here's what's
real tree for me personally.
Okay. I must go with fake tree.
Oh, wow. So there's a disagreement here. Can you guys unpack that a little bit? Why do you like a real tree? Why do you like a fake tree?
You get the scent of the pine needles, and it feels like holidays. It feels like Christmas, and it's very nice.
That's a really good point. What's your defense here?
Well, I've been using the same tree for the past couple of years. It's just in my basement. Sometimes I leave it out.
We always purchase a real Christmas tree and decorate it with the children and grandchildren.
Real tree.
Why?
Because I don't like fake things.
White lights or multicolored lights?
We do multicolored lights.
Does it feel more festive that way?
For me, it does. And of course for the kids too, because kids love a lot of color. And we have 10 granddaughters.
I like white lights. I like a white Christmas. I like silvers, whites. That kind of vibe.
I agree. I like white lights. Yeah.
And Vancouver City Councillor Lucy Maloney wants right turns to be restricted on red lights at major intersections across the city. Maloney presenting a motion at a committee meeting this morning. Her motion states that a City of Vancouver pedestrian safety study from 2012 found, quote, collisions involving right-turning vehicles are the second most common type of pedestrian collision, end quote. Some other communities are already starting to ban right turns on red lights at some intersections. So, should right turns on red be banned in Vancouver and across BC? Which intersections would you support banning right turns on red lights? And what are some other methods you'd like to see in place to make streets safer for cyclists and pedestrians? Call us now. Just hit pound 690 on your cell phone. You can also call 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. That is 604-669-3733. Or you can email us bctoday@cbc.ca or leave a comment on our TikTok Live. Joining us now is Haakon Koyote. He is a volunteer with the pedestrian safety group Vision Zero Vancouver. Hello, Haakon. Thanks for coming in.
Good afternoon, Amy.
So what are the biggest safety issues with turning right at a red light?
Well, when you come up to a red light, as a driver, there's a lot that you have to do, right? You have to look for vehicles that are coming because they have a green light, but you also have to shoulder check, look for pedestrians, look for cyclists that are coming up on the other side from where you want to turn, right? So there's a huge cognitive workload. It's really, really a complex point for drivers when they're making that right turn. And there's a lot of chance for them, if they're just focused on other drivers, to hit a cyclist or a pedestrian.
And what role did Vision Zero sort of play in drafting this motion with Councillor Maloney?
Well, we've worked with Councillor Maloney a lot. You may remember her coming on the show like this as a volunteer for Vision Zero Vancouver before she was elected.
She's long been a supporter, vocal supporter of more safety for cyclists and pedestrians.
Yeah, absolutely. So we worked with Lucy to help put this together. And we think it is an excellent start for the city of Vancouver. But obviously, as an organization, we'd like to see no right turn on red lights throughout the entire city of Vancouver and frankly, throughout all of BC.
We have a call that's already come in. I want to get to that. It's Pete in Vancouver. Hi, Pete. What are your thoughts on this topic?
Hi, long overdue because pedestrians don't matter in Vancouver. In Europe, they ban right turns on red lights, and they ban it in Montreal. They ban it in New York and Washington citywide. In fact, you look at the city's own research. Their own research shows that conflicts involving right-turn vehicles are among the most common types of pedestrian collisions, many occurring when they're crossing with a walk signal. Another study from the city of Vancouver showed that 13% of cyclist driver collisions occur during right-hand lanes. And in Washington, D.C., they did a pilot project to sort of ban red lights, and they had a dramatic reduction in conflicts, including 97% decrease in vehicle-to-vehicle conflicts. It's not just about pedestrians and cyclists, and a 92% drop in failures to lead to pedestrians. And they have 2-ton cars, and we have 100 to maybe 200 or change pound bodies. And we're not going to end very well from that experiment. And it is cognitively demanding. Even the BC government in their own policy stated. So, like, this is research-based. It's going to help pedestrians, help bicyclists, and help car drivers as well, because they're going to get into conflicts with red lights.
Thank you for that, Pete. And that is true. We have to keep the cars as part of the equation. It is a seemingly benefit to vehicles to also have this ban in place. Where would you, if not completely citywide, what are some key intersections that you think it would be most helpful that you'd first like to see it at?
Yeah, so the motion, what it calls for right now is in bringing a restriction on right turns in any intersection that has a leading pedestrian interval, which is when the lights are programmed so that pedestrians get a head start to cross the street.
And we've really seen that across the city.
Yeah, in credit to council, this is something that they've really done this term, and it's been fantastic, and we do want to give credit to them for that. And this motion essentially is like, it makes sense. These are perfect things to put together, because when you have people who are given that head start, they could still be cut off by someone who's turning right on a red light into them. So, it doesn't really make sense to give people a head start and then take that head start away by letting people turn right. So, that's definitely one of the first places that is in the motion that we want to see this. And then the other one is when it conflicts with an established bike lane or bike infrastructure that is in place in an intersection in the city.
All right. Get another call in. This one from Ian in Victoria. Hi, Ian. What are your thoughts on right turns at red lights?
Oh, hi. We can change these laws, but I just want to comment that I don't even drive, okay? And I do everything by walking in my neighborhood here in Victoria, and I am flabbergasted by the number of pedestrians who take absolutely no responsibility for their own safety. No reflectors, no flashlights, nothing. And they're walking off, whether it's this turn, that turn, the cars are there. And it's dark, there's rain on the windshield, and they go walking out. Like everything is in the hands of the driver. And like the guest said, it's very stressful. There's a lot to take into account. So an education move, perhaps. It's like people walking, wake up, put on reflectors, carry a light, make yourself visible, watch for what the traffic is coming from. I mean, this is not turning. It could be a good idea. Maybe I could see it can lead to a lot more congestion. Fine, somebody else can make that decision, but the onus is always on the cars. And the drivers and pedestrians dressed in dark, no reflectors, not watching, on their phones, not even not taking the slightest bit of responsibility for their own safety. And I've seen some situations where if they get hit, I'd feel worse for the driver.
All right.
You know what I mean?
I understand your frustration, and especially this time of year, it can be difficult for everybody to be as visible as they perhaps might like. Haakon, I'll leave you to respond to that. We do, I think, hear that argument sometime that there is a level of responsibility that pedestrians need to take for their own safety. But as you mentioned, they're up against an opposable force that's not equal. So how do you respond to that?
Yeah, I think this is a significant challenge that we deal with consistently. What I would say is if our system is, our streets are designed in a way that conflict doesn't happen because that driver is not permitted to make that movement, then if someone makes a mistake by not looking both ways before they cross the street, then the consequences for that person are going to be, they're not going to be hit and seriously injured or killed, right? Okay. So it's about how we design the system so that people who make the mistake of not looking, being distracted, do not have, serious or fatal consequences.
Okay. Another call. We've got quite a few. I figured this would be a hot topic today. Iris in West Vancouver. How are you doing, Iris?
Oh, I'm doing well, thank you.
And how do you think this...
Sorry.
You go ahead.
I want to say, let's make red mean stop.
Mm-hmm.
Just stop.
It's a good reminder, as we see at many intersections. That's sometimes a suggestion and not the absolute.
I think it's also just simpler for drivers, right? Like, this is why we'd like to see it everywhere, because a red light means stop. You can't turn right. You can't do anything else. And we've seen these at some intersections right now in the city, but they're not everywhere. So just having this be consistent makes it simpler for people who are driving.
And I would think so, especially if you're traveling from different areas of the city, but even eventually if you're traveling across the province, it would be good to have it just mandated across the board, perhaps. So
absolutely,
you never do have to wonder. We'll get a call in now from Cody in Cranbrook. Hi, Cody.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. What are your thoughts on right turns at red lights?
Yeah, I would say that I think it's kind of a flawed suggestion, just because if somebody is going to make a right-hand turn on a red, and I think I'm echoing what a previous caller said, then he or she is probably not going to even bother to care about the rules. And that being said, how is it going to be enforced? Like 1 in 1,000 times it happens, maybe there's a police officer there to stop the person. And the other thing is the onus, there's a serious amount of onus needs to be put on pedestrians and the cyclists. I find that a lot of cyclists feel that it is their right or they own the road. And I know, or at least I believe that they do have the right of way. But, it's, in the event of an accident, no matter who's right or wrong, the vehicle is going to win every time.
All right. Thank you so much for that comment, Cody. We'll get one from Danuk in Nanaimo. Hi, Danuk. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Amy?
I'm doing great. So what are your thoughts on red light turns?
I lived in Vancouver for a long time, and I moved to Nanaimo recently, about 12 years ago.
Okay.
As a cyclist in Vancouver, the bike lanes are awesome. Good job, City Hall. But often I find that drivers it's wet, it's rainy, it's dark, and drivers often don't see. I have very visible gear always. Pedestrians and cyclists, drivers aren't paying attention. They're busy, looking at their phones, drinking coffee, whatever. I've seen someone lady doing her hair in the car. But I think it's really important to do whatever we can to protect pedestrians and cyclists. One of the issues in Nanaimo we have is what I call orphan bike lanes and sidewalks. The developer pays for the sidewalk and the bike lane. It's only patches that happen. So it's not connected. It's not integrated. I love that Vancouver has that integrated system of bike lanes. You can go from point A to point B. But I think it's really important to have Pedestrians, we should make our cities more pedestrian and cyclist friendly everywhere. It's better for the environment. It has lots of research behind it. And it's cheaper, way cheaper than catering to cars. I think you had something on, I can't remember what it was. I wasn't sure it was on the morning show or the current, but they're talking about the cost of bicycle lanes and sidewalks versus having more cars.
Right, the infrastructure for cars. Very good point. It seems, a vehicle is more expensive, and as are all of the things that it needs to get you around. Haakon, one thing I wanted to bring up, just in case people don't have, I guess, the background, the right turn on red lights really only came up in the 70s as a way to cut down on people idling. And now that we have so many, more efficient vehicles, but also a lot of electric vehicles, is that not another reason that they've just become unnecessary?
Yeah, it's a very interesting piece of the history around.
Like it wasn't put in as a traffic calming measure or anything. It was purely.
It was part of the oil crisis in the 70s, which I was not around at that time, but so I've lived with this my whole life. But it's a question about does this really actually deliver having right turns on red light? Does it deliver on what the original goal of that legislation was? And arguably no.
Right. Okay.
And it makes it significantly more dangerous for pedestrians and for cyclists on the road. So it's a very common sense change in the rules to make if we want to prioritize the health and well-being of people in our city.
Yeah, and it's just an interesting point that I wasn't even aware of when we first started hearing this idea, and I said, well, there had to have been a safety reason why this was enacted. Like, what was the mind thought behind it? And to realize that it wasn't. It was, yes, as you mentioned, due to the oil crisis in the 70s. Just a little bit of trivia that might pop up one night at pub nights for you if you need it. We've got some TikTok comments that have come in as well. Ash says, not going to help traffic at all. Christina says, no, its drivers need to take more precautions and stop making rash decisions. And Lee says, no, people just need to drive properly and obey traffic laws. It is unnecessary for every intersection. Time for one more call before the news. This one from Josh in Vancouver. Hi, Josh.
Hi. I'm a professional driver. I'm on the road in Vancouver every day of the year, practically. And I think for the most part, drivers are complying with, when you see a walk signal, wait for the pedestrians. Where we get our problem, and the crux of the situation, I think, is that pedestrians are not complying. You can go to any intersection, and once the don't walk thing starts going, pedestrians are crossing anyways. If we weren't allowed to turn right on a red light, I don't think you'd be able to turn right anywhere in Vancouver because, quite frankly, we're complying, waiting for the pedestrians, but the pedestrians are the ones not complying. If you go to any intersection, you can see that they just walk. Even if there's 3 seconds left on the clock, they'll get out and start walking, and that's technically our time to turn right.
Okay. Well, that's a good point to bring up, John, and I appreciate that. And obviously, a unique perspective from somebody that works driving the city. Haakon, do you think there does need to be perhaps a shift as well in educating pedestrians, just in terms of being a bit safer, proper etiquette, or is this sort of just laying blame on pedestrians unfairly?
As representing Vision Zero and what we bring to the table, we are focused on the systems approach of how to make it safer, and we focus on making sure that people who are vulnerable, pedestrians and cyclists on the road, are not going to be hit and killed. And so I appreciate the comments, and every time we talk about education, but when we look at what's really effective, it are these structural changes to the laws and designing and making our streets work so that they prioritize people above vehicle movements.
All right. We're just going to take a quick break for the news, but you're going to stick around with us. We'll take some more calls on whether or not we should be banning right turns at red lights. Right now, though, it is time for a look at the 12:30 CBC News with Tarnjeet Parmar.
Good afternoon. The BC River Forecast Centre has issued a flood watch for the Fraser Valley as an atmospheric river system hits part of the province. People are being advised to stay away from fast-flowing rivers as river banks may become unstable and dangerous. Most of the south coast and parts of the southern interior are under rain warnings. Drivers are being warned that visibility may be poor at times and water may pool on the roads. Highway 97 is closed between Prince George and Chetwynd due to avalanche risk. BC's Ministry of Transportation says small avalanches are expected to affect the road between the West Pine Rest Area and Azu Campground. Avalanche Canada says that the risk for the region northeast of Prince George is high, with large amounts of new snow burying weak layers underneath and making slides more likely. And the RCMP's drug lab team says it has dismantled a facility in Surrey and seized a number of guns, ammunition, and suspected fentanyl. The bust happened on September 14th when officers executed search warrants at the property in Surrey and one in Richmond. Police say they recovered 13 firearms, 14 kilograms of suspected fentanyl, and more than 200 liters of a chemical precursor used to produce GHB. Those are your news headlines from the CBC Vancouver newsroom. For more information, you can go to the website cbc.ca/BC.
Thank you so much for that, Tarnjeet. And we're continuing our discussion on whether or not you think right turns should be banned at red lights. There is a motion going forward with Vancouver City Council, hoping to achieve that. And we've been joined today by Vision Zero's Haakon Koyote. So we want to hear from you. And we already have a few calls that have still been coming in, but you can call us at 604-669-3733, 1-800-825-5950. 5950, or email us bctoday@cbc.ca, or leave a comment on our TikTok at CBC British Columbia. We'll take a call from Lori in Vancouver. Hi, Lori. What are your thoughts on this topic?
Oh, hi. I mean, the fact that you're going to make a red light where we can't turn, I'm not sure where to stand about that, but I do agree with the other callers about pedestrians also being responsible. I've had seen people jaywalking, and they're wearing black. They're looking at their phone. They cross when the hand's already like 3 seconds left. And so, saying stop applies to everyone. I think applies to pedestrians as well, even cyclists. It's about visibility and also predictability. When we signal, we want to turn right, but we don't know sometimes what the pedestrians are going to do, what the cyclists are going to do when they come out of nowhere expecting us to see them. And if you ever go to Metrotown, where you're exiting the parkade, there's a dedicated signal for us to turn right. But then when the red hand goes up, there's still shoppers crossing. We get maybe 2 cars in at most, and you're waiting there for a long time to take that right turn. But I think if everybody followed the rules, pedestrians, cyclists, drivers, red means red.
Mm-hmm.
If there's predictability, there's visibility, then we're good. But I'm not sure how this red light is going to help if, the others don't, pedestrians, cyclists don't follow the rules.
All right. Thank you so much for that comment. And an email from Mina Lee, and she says, older senior pedestrians have to be so careful. We are scared to cross the streets. And that is always an extra caution for people that take a bit longer, whether they're elderly or having mobility issues. That can be very daunting to cross the street. And would this system perhaps give them a little bit of peace of mind?
I certainly think so. The statistics are, really quite devastating around which pedestrians who is injured and killed on our roads, and it is generally people who are older and those who take a lot longer to cross the street. So, this is a great initiative to, prevent people from, accidentally cutting those people off or, striking those people who are taking longer to cross the road.
Mm-hmm. Another comment from our TikTok, it says, from BC Girl, says, yes, should be banned, especially for the kids walking to and from school. That is always a fear when your kids are old enough to go to school on their own. It's them crossing the street. It can be very upsetting. Jay Tiga says the issue here is handing licenses out like candy. We'll get a call in now from Ben in Kamloops. Hi, Ben.
How's it going?
It's going well. How would you like to see right turns on red banned in Kamloops?
I don't think it's necessary. I think what's actually necessary is that we educate our kids right from children. And when you're crossing the street, you make eye contact with the driver that you're about to cross in front of. And then everybody knows exactly what they're doing because you've looked at each other and you see each other.
It does help to have that moment of connection if you can. But as we've had other people point out, that can be difficult when you have a distracted driver or somebody that is looking at a navigation system, which I find quite common these days. So yeah, I think ideally we can always have that moment of I see you, you see me, we're all on the same page, but it doesn't always happen. Haakon, I'm curious too, you obviously have put a lot of thought and dedication into making streets safer. What are some other methods that you would like to see either across the city or across the province ideally that would really contribute to pedestrian and cyclist safety?
The biggest things, other than, reducing the conflicts at intersections, are reducing the speeds of vehicles on the road, because we know that speed is the #1 contributor to deaths and injuries for pedestrians and vulnerable road users. And then the other thing, which has been brought up a few times by different callers, is not everybody follows the rules, and the police can't always be there.
Well, and that's it.
So we'd like to see automated enforcement with speed and red light cameras throughout the province,
right.
And especially here in Vancouver, where there's a lot of conflict between these different groups.
There can be a lot of conflict in Vancouver, yes. A couple more calls before we'll let you go, Haakon. I appreciate you staying with us for an extra long time. I knew there would be a lot of callers on this topic. Gord in Vancouver, how are you feeling about today's topic and right turns on red lights?
I think we're going way too far in the wrong direction. We can't slow down commerce. We can't slow down. I mean, we have more and more people in the city. And how are you going to get goods moved? How are people going to move if you keep slowing the traffic down? You keep doing things like banning on red lights. We can't. We have to educate people. I mean, when we were kids, we were taught, look both ways before you cross the road. Look at the person driving. And there's so much blame put on distracted driving. You look at anybody downtown, they're not looking where they're going. They're on their phone, walking out into the middle of traffic. Nobody is paying any attention. There's no enforcement on the pedestrian side. Everybody screams about enforcement on the driver's side, red light cameras, speed light cameras, et cetera, et cetera.
All right.
You're not going to make you're going to make the city impossible to navigate.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Gord, last call quickly from Don in Vancouver. Hi, Don.
Hi there.
And what are your thoughts? I sure can. What are your thoughts on the topic?
Well, I think we're kind of I'm going to go a little slightly off topic here, but just for a moment. One of the issues I have personally, and I know it affects a lot of people in the city, is not only the pedestrians and the drivers and their habits, but the economy of this thing, which is the more we restrict the flow of traffic, the higher the cost of living goes. If you're driving a truck that's delivering groceries to stores in a big semi and you can make 8 deliveries in a day, and because of traffic restrictions and the way we've made traffic safer, all of a sudden you can only make 4 or 5, then the owner of that company is buying a vehicle, hiring a driver, maintaining the vehicle, and that cost is being transferred over to the cost of, say, the groceries or the lumber or whatever it is this person is driving to the retailer. So we have to find a way to actually keep traffic flowing, not slow traffic down, and at the same time provide safe spaces for pedestrians and cyclists. And to be honest with you, I see very little responsibility being taken by either the cyclists or the pedestrians, or for that matter, the road and traffic designers, to actually bring that to fruition in a way that accommodates all 3 parties.
All right. Thank you for that, Don. We'll have to leave it there, and I'll just let you respond to that quickly. Will this slow down traffic to that degree?
Well, yeah, to respond to what the caller was saying, there's actually an incredible way that a lot of people can save a lot of money, and that is by walking to work or biking to work or being able to, use a different form of transport. Owning a car costs about $10,000 a year when you put all the costs into it. So if it's safer and it's more accessible for people to be able to walk and bike, that's one less car on the road, and then that's one less car in front of you if you're someone who needs to drive.
For those that do
and
need to drive,
that
yes.
goods movement as well, supporting the local economy. It's also about making sure that people who don't need to drive can choose a different option.
All right, Haakon, really appreciate you being with us today, and we will, of course, keep on this story to see what happens with Councillor Maloney's motion. Thank you. That is Haakon Koyote. He is a volunteer with Vision Zero, and it is 12:41, and this is BC Today. And we have another grand total for CBC's Make the Season Kind fundraiser. It is inching closer and closer to the $2 million milestone. So far, we have raised $1,934,463.35. Another $90,000 was added since we checked in on this number yesterday. Thank you so much to those who contributed and to everyone's support for the 111 food banks in BC. We've come a long way since we started this fundraiser back in 1986. More than $24 million have been raised ever since, and the annual total continues to grow every year. Last year's total was $2.4 million. But if donations keep going at this rate, we could reach a similar number this year. Remember, anyone who wants to donate has until December 31st to contribute to this year's total. And to make a donation, you can go to cbc.ca/kindbc, click on Donate Now. Once again, that's cbc.ca/kindbc, and click on the Donate Now button. You'll get your tax receipt within hours. You can also donate by text. Just text KIND to 20222. It warms our hearts every year to see all of this kindness flow in to help out our food banks and those in needs. And we just want to offer a very sincere thank you. And while the holidays may be a time of celebration and joy and connection for many, they can also be challenging for some others. Some young people experience increased stress during this period, whether that's due to school pressure before the holiday break, family expectations, or even just figuring out changing routines. For some, the holidays can highlight feelings of loneliness or isolation, especially if they're separated from their friends or maybe facing family conflict. They could even be coping with grief or loss, and some might feel pressure to participate in social activities that they're not comfortable with, or to meet financial or emotional expectations that can be a bit overwhelming. So how can we support the young people in our lives during the holiday season? And what help is available for them? Call us now. Just hit pound 690 on your cell phone, or you can call 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can email bctoday@cbc.ca or leave a comment on our TikTok Live. Now, for more on this, we're joined by Diana Martin. She's the Senior Director of Clinical Integration and Partnerships with Kids Help Phone. Good afternoon, Diana. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having us.
Obviously, this is a season that we associate with kids being, so happy and looking forward to, but what are some of the maybe more common mental health concerns that youth contact Kids Help Phone about during this holiday season?
Well, it's a really tough time for a lot of young people. And so what ends up happening is often that, young people are still dealing with the same challenges and issues that they have during the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm.
But it can become a lot heavier because there's the pressures of the holiday season. There's the pressure to be doing things and have plans, also to be happy, right? A lot of
Yeah.
times people are like, oh, it's the holidays, you should be happy. Well, if you're already struggling, that can actually feel so much more isolating than at that time. The other thing is suddenly you're out of your routine, you're not at school, you're not around your friends. Maybe your friends are busy. Not everybody celebrates the holidays in December, of course. And so in that kind of situation, you might see all your friends are really busy, but you might not have a lot of plans. So there can be all these great big expectations. And when it doesn't necessarily go the way you hope, um, yeah, that can really have a huge impact. And so during the holiday season, we're actually really busy at Kids Help Phone with lots of young people reaching out. And it really is sometimes compounding what challenges they're already facing during the holiday season.
Right. And I mean, adults experience that as well. This can be a difficult time that really puts a focus on some of the issues you've been struggling with throughout the year and magnifying them. What sort of support then, as you said, this can be a really busy time for the Kids Help Phone. What sort of supports are out there for young people, for kids and youth today?
Yeah, one thing we always encourage young people to look to is caring and supportive adults in their life, or anyone who's caring and supportive in their life. It can even be a really close friend. Hopefully, young people are able to reach out and talk to somebody they're close to. It's not always easy, though, and often it's difficult with everybody's busy, or a lot of people also have maybe a counselor or a teacher that's usually a big support. They might not be accessible to them over the holidays. And so Kids Help Phone is here 24/7. We never close, and young people can reach out by text or by phone at any time over the holidays if they're just needing somebody to talk things through with.
And are there maybe some specific signs or behaviors that adults could watch out for that might indicate a young person in their life is really struggling at this time of year?
Yeah, certainly. If you're noticing a big change, or maybe you're seeing a young person in your life who's withdrawing or just not seeming themselves, what can really help is to take some time to check in with them. And with the holidays being so busy, it's really hard to find those moments to just slow down and do that, where you actually have the space to have that conversation with a young person in your life. But just creating that time of calm where you can focus on them, you're not running off somewhere, to be able to initiate the conversation makes a huge difference. And even if the young person doesn't feel that they're ready to talk right in that moment, just knowing that you've made that space available to them will hopefully help them to feel that they can actually do that at a different time, maybe when they are feeling ready.
And then, what sort of advice could somebody give to somebody, a young person in their life that is really struggling, that does maybe open up to them about feeling, lonely or overwhelmed or even just anxious about holiday gatherings?
Yeah, sometimes hearing them out is just what somebody needs. They need to get those feelings off their chest.
True, yeah.
Maybe there's a young person who might say, you know what, I don't feel like going to that event. Can I just opt out of this one, if they're feeling overwhelmed? One thing we always encourage caring adults in people's lives to do is to make the information about Kids Help Phone available. So some parents will and adults will put it up on their fridge. They'll show the young people in their lives our website that has all of our services listed. And it's just a way to let young people know, you know what, it's actually okay to reach out, because we know a lot of young people aren't necessarily going to tell things to the people in their lives, or maybe they do, but that day it doesn't feel comfortable for them, or they don't feel that there's the time for that. And so letting them know that there are other places that they can reach out, whether it's Kids Help Phone or another supportive person in their life, it helps normalize it and take some of that stigma away.
I do want other people to join in our conversation if you have concerns about, the mental health of a young person in your life during the holidays, or if you have a support or ideas of how we can support young people during the holiday season. Just give us a call at 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. I'd love to have you join our discussion. We're speaking with Diana Martin from Kids Help Phone today, which offers 24/7 support in English and French. You can access that, of course, by calling 1-800-668-6868. Diana, how, as we head into the holiday season, can parents or caregivers maybe be a bit proactive to set the stage for a good holiday season, to sort of try to set a supportive and safe, emotionally safe environment for the young people in their lives.
Yeah, I'd really encourage them to talk to those young people in their lives and just say, here's what our plans are, here's what we're thinking. Maybe asking them to contribute and saying, does that feel like maybe too much? Or do you have any questions about when we're going to do this or what's going to happen there? Just to bring them into that conversation so they also know what to expect. And it's also okay if you pick up on those cues from that young person that's sort of like, whoa, that's a lot, or that sounds, oh, I'm not so sure about this, or I'm not really comfortable with this thing, that it's okay then to open up that conversation. And maybe if you have the ability to be able to adjust a little bit, maybe what some of those plans are.
And in terms of having a young person in your life that you know is struggling, what if they were to express some thoughts that were very concerning about, perhaps self-harm or threats of that? How does a family member or a friend negotiate that? I know it must be incredibly difficult for somebody to know what to do in that moment.
Yeah. It's and scary too if it's
Yeah.
if you hear that from somebody that you really care for, or anybody, it's a really scary thing. And so one thing that we always remind people is that if somebody's really unsafe in the moment, that they can always seek help at a hospital and they can call 911 for immediate support just to make sure that they're safe. And so caring adults, friends are able to do that as well. Often we actually have people call Kids Help Phone, sometimes with the person that's struggling in that moment, just so that they have that immediate person to talk to, so we can talk about what that risk is and some ways to keep safe. So if there is a young person and you are hearing any discussion of suicide or self-injury or anything that's really worrying you, as I said, 911 and emergency services is always one option, but Kids Help Phone, because we're there 24/7. So even if it's 3 a.m, sometimes people will call us at that time and want to talk through those feelings, because sometimes it's the feelings are so overwhelming that people don't know what to do with them in that moment. And that's something that we can help them unpack and figure out. And the other thing that we know is that young people are incredibly resilient and they have so many skills and abilities and strategies that they've used and that have been things that have really helped them. And so one of the things we like to do at Kids Help Phone is try and unpack what some of those things are, to build those plans, to build that safety that they've been able to do in the past, and also who they can connect with to have those conversations so that they're not alone with it. We talk at Kids Help Phone, we talk about feel out loud. And the idea is we really want young people to be able to express their emotions and express what they're feeling rather than keeping it inside.
Oh, absolutely. But I think, I think adults can feel this sometimes too, given the time of year. You're wanting to be celebratory. People are in a good mood. There can be almost a guilt and a shame that you're not feeling that. How can we sort of encourage kids to move past that, to not feel that it's a burden, to not feel that something they need to be embarrassed about feeling?
Yeah, and I think that we as adults can model that. We can, share our own feelings about, wow, this feels really busy. Wow, I'm feeling kind of overwhelmed right now. And it normalizes those conversations and it allows us to actually be able to start those conversations to do that. The other thing is it's often those expectations. So maybe people have expectations, for example, about what New Year's Eve should look like.
Right.
And what kind of activities they want to do and what kind of experience they want to have. And then it can be really, really upsetting and hurtful and distressing to people when it doesn't go the way that they imagined. And it doesn't even necessarily mean that it went badly. It could just be that it didn't live up to what the expectations are. And so I think modeling that as adults and caring adults, that, you know what, sometimes that does happen and it is really disappointing and that's valid. But then to maybe try and figure out, okay, so what, if it's somebody wasn't there that was important to you, what's something that you could do maybe to connect with them at a later time? Somebody's feeling grief over somebody that they've lost. Maybe what's something they can do to celebrate or remember that person? but talking through with the young person about what might actually help them.
And I love, you said modeling that the adults sort of need to be more open and express how they're overwhelmed, how they're feeling sad. Are we seeing that shift, that we're being more open about mental health and as a result, maybe raising a generation that is a bit more open about their feelings and their mental health issues?
Well, I really hope so.
I was going to say, I'm saying this as a parent, that I'm really hoping this is the case.
Of course. Yeah, and I think one of the things that we see that to me is also really encouraging is the need and the momentum of people reaching out, young people reaching out to Kids Help Phone is always growing. And that says a couple things to me. One is that the need is incredible for young people. And because we talk to people in every part of Canada, coast to coast to coast, the reality is in some communities, there aren't a lot of resources that people can reach out to. Even if there are, though, they don't always feel accessible to young people. And so what I think when I look at our service and I see how the demand is growing, I always remind myself that part of that comes from knowledge and people having that language and being able to remove some of that stigma around dealing with mental health and talking about mental health. And so the more young people know about whether it's Kids Help Phone or whether they're talking to people in their lives, whether they have an individual counselor themselves or a coach or a teacher that they're close to, those conversations, I think, continue to build. And I do think give a really great message to young people that it is okay and hopefully does open them up more, not just at their age now, but as they get older and that they can carry that with them into adulthood.
Yeah, and pass that on to the next generation. Diana, thank you so much for joining us today. Really lovely to speak with you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
That was Diana Martin with Kids Help Phone. And of course, you can reach professional counselors at Kids Help Phone in English or French 24/7 by calling 1-800-668-6868. And British Columbia's River Forecast Centre has issued a flood warning for the Lower Mainland and Skagit Basin in the province's southwest, including the entirety of the Fraser Valley and most of Metro Vancouver as this atmospheric river swamps the area. The centre says the heavy rain will also bring the potential for spillover from the Nooksack River in Washington state. And Kelly Green, Minister of Emergency Management, will be joined by technical experts from the River Forecast Centre at a press conference today at 2 o'clock.